Comic book writer Chip Zdarsky once said, "It was like we were at sea together and had to figure out how to make a boat work." This is the Producers Lounge podcast, the best podcast online for tips and tricks on producing great film, television, and web content. Welcome back for Season 3, Episode 18, hosted and produced by greaterandgrander.com. On this week's episode, we're chatting with Trey McClarnon, who has produced short films and independent features, including The Heartbreak with Beverly D'Angelo, and The Other People with Jason Marsden. We discuss how to use your short film sales as a way to get your feature film funded, how to find investors, time management strategies, translating stand-up comedy into independent short films, and film festival strategies. Trey has an interesting path to the producer's chair. He started practicing law, and specifically high-volume litigation law, and found his way into short films as a way to work more with his brother on their mutual passion. Here now is my conversation with Trey McClarnon.
Awesome.
There was one other question I wanted to ask, which is I saw on your LinkedIn you are listed as an attorney. Just because that can be, dicey for some people. Are you okay with talking about that in the episode, or should we avoid it?
No, it's fine. We can talk about it.
All right, cool, awesome.
Yeah.
So how is Tennessee overall in the October? I know in Los Angeles, like the heat wave only dies down about halfway through October. So
yeah, so far it's iffy. I think this is like the first couple of days where it's starting to feel nice. Like today was like a high of 70, which was nice. But I mean, last week it was like still like in the 80s. So it's just now starting to turn to where it feels fallish.
Yeah. Do you get a strong fall where you're at, or
Not really, no.
okay?
We get a little bit of it, and also Tennessee tends to flip flop back and forth a lot. So it'll feel like fall for a week, and then it'll be hot again, and then it'll be fall again, and there's always a joke that you get like false fall and false spring, and then back to whatever the previous season was.
Oh, that's awesome. So, how long have you been in? It's Nashville, correct?
Nashville, yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I'm from this area originally, actually.
Oh, nice.
So I'm born and raised in Gallatin, Tennessee, which is about 30 minutes north of Nashville. Grew up on a cattle farm in Gallatin, but yeah, so I've been basically in Nashville, outside of the times that I moved away. I'm from here and back home here. So,
Okay, I gotta ask, because here's the thing. I
mhm.
grew up in Connecticut, and whenever I told people I grew up in Connecticut, they were like, "Did you grow up in a farm?" And it was, no, that's not
Mhm.
the case. But I gotta ask, what was it like growing up on a cattle farm? I've never heard that.
I mean, it's fun, and I mean, I want to be transparent. Like, I've never farmed a day in my life. My
Uh-huh.
family had a farm, and we, le- leased it out to a guy who had cattle, and so we had it was almost like a complex. So it was like I had the house with my immediate family, and then my grandparents, my mom's parents lived on the same farm, and then her sister and family also lived on the same farm, and so we were all on this thing, and then we had a big field that had cattle in it, and it was great. So when we would go out to play, we didn't really have neighbors, we didn't really have people around, but you could just go out in the field and go do whatever you wanted. And occasionally, every once in a while, a cow would get out. And you'd have to make sure that the cow got back into where the field is supposed to be. And outside of that, it was all right. My parents would say stuff like, "Don't go in the barn." We would immediately go to the barn and play around a bunch of dangerous farm equipment, and mostly that.
Nice. Like I gotta be honest, like chasing a cow sounds really, really fun. It just does. I don't know.
It was a pretty fun way to grow up.
Yeah.
And it was always great. You could always have a lot of parties and do stuff because you've got space to have people. You know. But yeah, it was great. Other than a cattle farm isn't always the best smelling of places, but
Yeah.
when the summer hits, it can get a little rough, but it's all right. It's fun.
And so when did you decide that you wanted to, or you were attracted to entertainment and creating movies and what have you?
I had a bit of a weird trajectory with that
Hmm.
because I'm a lawyer, and so my path wasn't exactly a straight line into making movies.
Hmm.
Um, but uh, weirdly, I grew up across the street, so we were on a farm, but across the street was a drive-in movie theater from where we grew up, and it was a drive-in movie theater that weirdly a lot of people of a certain age have seen because it's the drive-in movie theater that was in the old Monday Night Football promo. So with Hank Williams Jr., when he's at a drive-in movie theater and it's all my rowdy friends are there on Monday night, he's at a drive-in movie theater watching the football game. That was the drive-in movie theater across the street from my house. And he recorded that when I was a kid. I remember us, we were there when he recorded that because, my dad was mad because they were shooting fireworks off till 3 o'clock in the morning recording this promo. Um, but as a kid, we were at the movies all the time. And my brother and I, which my brother is my business partner, he's my director and collaborator.
Chad?
Chad, yeah. And so we were always at the movies. And I didn't know that that was weird. I thought that that's what other kids also did. But we were at the drive-in all the time. And then we would also just go to the regular theater. And it was normal for us on a Saturday to go to a movie with my mom and then go get ice cream and then go back to the theater and watch another movie. And I thought that that's what other kids did. I didn't know that that was not normal. And then when I got older, when I was in college, I worked at a theater. There's an IMAX, one of the few 70 millimeter IMAXs left in the United States is in Nashville.
Oh, wow.
And I was on the opening staff for that theater when it opened in 1999 because I'm older. But, I worked there. And then my brother and I also both worked at a Hollywood Video, different Hollywood Videos. Not Blockbuster, but Hollywood Video. and, and so we were just around it a lot. And it's, you get into those weird things when you work in a theater or you work in a movie store. There's these years where I saw literally every movie because I had free movies. Because you work at the theater, you can go to the theater for free. And so every week you just go and see everything that comes out because you can. And then you work at a rental store, you can see everything that they have because you can take, 5 DVDs every night. And so you just take everything and watch everything. And we just did that and just watched, there's these years where my brother and I have seen every movie that came out during this span of time because we just could do it for no cost. But even with that, we weren't thinking about making movies. We just did it because we loved watching them. We did it because we liked being around it. And it wasn't until later where it was like, oh, maybe we should do something with that.
So I'm guessing you did not tell your parents like, hey, I want to go to film school when I go to college. No.
No, I've never taken anything like that. I mean, the closest thing that I did when I was in college, I took a playwriting class when I was an undergrad. But I was a history and political science double major. I had no art, anything. But I took a playwriting class only because it was because of like advanced placement classes and credits and whatever. I could have graduated early and I didn't. And instead, the last semester that I had in college, I went to every major of people that I was around and I said, "What's the best class you took in college?" And then I just took a whole semester of those classes. And so I took like forensic investigation and great thinkers of the Western world modern period, and playwriting was one of the classes. So I took that class. And so I wrote some plays. And then as part of that, you end up having plays produced at the college. And that was kind of the first taste that I ever had of doing anything creative or having anything that I made, where I had these plays that I wrote and they were put on stage. And then I hung that up and went to law school. I didn't really do anything else with it.
I'm curious, the plays that you wrote that you got produced, what was your favorite one that got made?
But I mean, my favorite one that I got made was a very silly thing. It was a one act about working at an IMAX movie theater, and all of the characters were stand-ins for basically The Wizard of Oz. And so it was The Wizard of Oz, but set in a one act in an IMAX movie theater, but structurally and character wise, it was The Wizard of Oz, and just a lot of really like slapsticky jokes of, what if that story took place within the confines of a bunch of, kind of burnout kids working in a movie theater.
I mean, that not only does that sound like a funny play or a funny concept, it also sounds like a killer Saturday Night Live sketch.
Yeah, I liked it. I'm a big comedy nerd. Also, I mean, when I got to law school, that ended up being the next thing that I ended up doing is that I kind of stumbled backwards into doing stand up, and I did stand up for 10 years. While I was in law school, and then after when I was a practicing attorney, I was doing stand up more than I was doing anything else. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it was a thing where I had a friend when I was my roommate in law school had cancer, and
Oh.
he was having a really hard time with it. And we were out one night drinking, honestly, and I was just trying to cheer him up. And so I was
Mhm.
making jokes of, I told him we should call the Make a Wish Foundation and wish for a lot of really crazy stuff and see what it is that they would give us. And I riffed on that for like an hour. And somebody was like, "Have you ever thought about doing stand up?" And I said, "No." And they said, "You should." And I said, "Okay." So I went to a club and said, "I want to do stand up. What do I need to do?"
Mhm.
And they said, "You can do 5 minutes tonight." And I said, "Okay." And I came back and did it. And then that ended up being the next 10 years of my life. And I didn't really know that that was going to happen.
So you
But
didn't
that
even,
was really my further.
yeah, you didn't even need to do a bringer show where you have to bring 3 to 5 friends who pay for 2 drink minimum. You just went up and like that. Damn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And met people at that show that ran clubs in other cities. And they were like, "Hey, that was funny. Come to these clubs." And I was like, "Okay." And I went from never having done stand up to doing like 3 shows a week
Hmm.
from then on, for a long time.
Wow. Okay. So you went to law school and you graduated law school in 2007, and
That's it.
you're, I imagine you're doing like, I mean, lawyer stuff. I don't know how else to phrase it, but practicing law. And then your first producer credit, according to IMDb, is A New Life in 2010. It's a short film that you wrote and
Mm-hmm.
co-produced. So I'm curious what happened in those 3 years that pushed you towards like, hey, I'm gonna do this. And and can I ask also how was that short film made?
Sure. So, I mean, this is going to be a strange story, I guess, because I was back in Nashville and there was a thing at that time called Mustache May, which was a website that was basically Instagram before Instagram. A guy in Nashville created it, and it was a website where you took pictures of yourself every day with a mustache for the month of May. And there were different themes, and people would comment and they would like upvote. And it was basically a social media site, like really kind of pre a lot of social media sites. And so it had this really weird worldwide following of people that would participate in this thing. But it was based in Nashville. This guy that
Hmm.
ran it was this guy named Michael Eads, who was in Nashville. And so we did this. My brother and I and some of our friends signed up for this and we did it. And through that, we met a lot of people that were doing a lot of creative stuff because it was kind of a niche thing that you had to seek out. So the people that were drawn to were people that were doing creative things. And so we met some people on there, and one guy in particular, Maki Dapp, who was a writer and director and filmmaker in Nashville, who was part of that group. And we ended up working as crew on some short films that he did.
Hmm.
And in that process, I had the background of writing, and then my brother had the background of as a photographer. And through that, we were like, I think we could do this. Um, and so we started Best Part Productions, wrote a short film, which was A New Life, and we shot it 2 weeks later. We just like self funded it, put it up, and went and did it. And shortly after that, we did 48 Hour Film Festival
Hmm.
in Nashville and did another film called Without. And then we took those two films because we had done them almost back to back and
Hmm.
started submitting those to film festivals. And we got in and started going to film festivals and then met people at the film festivals. And through that, started doing other projects and went from there. But it was a thing where we just kind of almost on a lark of we'd done this crew thing from people we met from this stupid mustache website. And we had a really great time with it. And we were like, "Hey, we always loved this, always loved movies. I think we could try to do it." And so we wrote a film and went and did it. And that first one, A New Life, was me and my brother and my best friend from growing up, Steve Schmelly, and the three of us wrote it and then went and just shot it. I mean, it was literally 2 weeks from when we had the idea to when we were in production.
Awesome. What'd you shoot it on?
I think it was a Nikon D100, like it was a DSLR. Um, but yeah, I think that was it. My brother was a stills photographer. He was a big Nikon guy, so
Hmm.
we just used the camera he literally had for what he used for his commercial work.
Got it. And I'm curious too, because like you're from what you've described, you're doing a lot. You're juggling a lot, which I think is kind of the millennial. I think we're around the same age. The kind of millennial kind of shuffle of like, yes, you have your day job. Yes, you're also doing your films on the side. Yes, you're gonna do stand-up comedy when you have what is your time management strategy as far as that?
I mean, during that time, it particularly helped that I'm a terrible insomniac, so I didn't sleep very much, and I still don't sleep very much. So that certainly helped. But I mean, yeah, I mean, at that time, I was doing a lot. I was working, 60 to 70 hours a week as a litigation attorney, high
Mhm.
volume litigation. I was in court all the time. I was doing stand up 3 to 4 nights a week. And then I was doing this film stuff with my brother. And then I was also traveling around the country doing competitive gaming also at that same time. So it was really not a lot of time, and I didn't really sit still very much. And that was kind of the way that it goes. But it did reach a point where I was like, hey, I don't know that I can do all of these things all of the time. And so as I started getting more into film, I did less and less stand up. So that's when I kind of moved away from that and moved more into doing film. Um, and then that was kind of how things shifted until I eventually also then shifted out of like, I don't think I want to do law anymore either. And so, but yeah, I mean, during that time, particularly 2010, I was doing all of it.
hmm Yeah, and it looks like at least by from what I'm seeing on your IMDb, it looks like you were doing a short every other year. Is that accurate? Or
Probably pretty close to that. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and it was just whenever we could get one up and going, we would do it. Because it was hard. The time limitations were mostly because of me. My brother had more time, more access, more things, but it was, with me doing all of the things that I was doing, and particularly working as a lawyer, I was basically doing nights and weekends, and it was when could we squeeze things in to make it happen. And then it would be, write a script, get it shot, do the post, then do a festival run, okay,
Mhm.
that's done. We can probably get another one going now. And that process would normally take, 18 months in a life cycle before we could then, okay, let's start it again and then do the same thing over again.
Okay. And then as far as kind of the festival circuit and, possibly going out for awards at certain festivals, what was your strategy overall regarding that? Because I know I'll speak from my own experience. When you're looking at festivals and what to apply to, generally you're going to have a higher amount of success with festivals that your department heads and cast have previously been in. So whenever I do a short, I will like look at all of the films that my colleagues have done and kind of see where there's some overlap and definitely target those. Mainly because the festival application fees, even for a short, have gotten so high. Um, but other than that, like I'm curious what your strategy is for going out to festivals.
I mean, it's changed a lot. From when we started, we knew nothing. I mean, we
Mhm.
knew just less than nothing. And especially being in a place where there was not a huge film community, we didn't have a ton of resources to look at or a ton of people to like model after. I mean, we were really in the early days, really just kind of shotgun approaching what was there, and we tried to research and vet things as best we could. Most of the time, we tried to look at something like, hey, what has the festival been around for double digit years? What does their website presence look like?
Mhm.
What kind of reputation does it seem like they have online? But it was all really just fast and loose. And that was, what can we see on Without a Box at the time, before Film Freeway took over. Um, and with some of that, we found some really great festivals and had some really great experiences. And then also with some of that, we had some really not so great experiences. We found that there were plenty of festivals that had really good marketing departments, much better than they had good festivals. But we also got very lucky. The first festival that we ever played with one of our films was the Phoenix Film Festival.
Mhm.
Um, and they are, I mean, incredible. Like the guys that run that are film lovers and really care about filmmakers. And so through that, we met a lot of people and made a lot of good connections. And so then we were able to kind of start to talk to other filmmakers and say, what places have you liked? What experiences have you had? And there was actually a great film that also screened there, a documentary that they play every year called Official Rejection, that's made by a great filmmaker named Paul Osborne, which is about the film festival submission process. And so being able to be there with our first film and see that documentary and be like, okay, cool, this kind of like gives us a better lay of the land of what it is that we're looking at. But now we try to be much more targeted of like, what is the film? What type of festivals are going to be a good fit, because we have much more experience being able to look at what's there. But I mean, then it was just, I mean, anything and everything.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll echo that. Like Without a Box back in the day had at least in my experience, had a terrible user interface. It was so difficult to use. And also like, yeah, the festival route is I've had pros and cons, positive experiences not. And some of them are, you're right, they have great marketing departments. But they just don't execute very well, but even though they are good, lovers of cinema. And other instances, they're like, oh, this is just a cash grab. Like, yeah.
But even with that, I mean, that's the thing too. Like I talk to a lot of people is that film festivals are great, even the bad ones. Like
Hmm.
because what's going to be there are other filmmakers, and you can still make great connections. You can make great things happen out of those festivals, even when the festival itself is maybe not the best experience or the best festival. I mean, some of our longest term film friends and film collaborators have come from the fact that we were at a festival that was less than stellar together. And you then get that kind of camaraderie from being in that situation. So I mean, I think there's still value if you get caught in a like, oh, that wasn't great. It still can be great overall.
Agreed. Agreed. Absolutely. So then your first feature in 2020 was Getaway. 2020 famous for being a great year for going to the cinema. Can you tell us how Getaway came about?
Well, so Getaway is written and directed by a friend of ours, Blaine Weaver, who we
Mhm.
actually, to bring it back full circle,
Oh,
um,
I'm sorry. I fucked up. I
so
misread the credit. Is your
that's my
first?
brother.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So Getaway, my brother shot and produced Getaway.
Okay.
Um, and then, yeah, and so then my company also, Best Part Productions, we did the some of the post on it
Mhm.
for that. So, um, but yeah, so that was it. It was written and directed by Blaine Weaver,
Mhm.
and it was shot as part of a director in residency at Shenandoah University in Virginia, where he was the director in residency, and then so they have as part of that film program, you use the students at the school, and then they fund the film if you will use basically the students that are in the program. But still was an indie film. Like he wrote it. Like they didn't control the creative of it. But just the only requirement was you had to use the students that are in the film program. So it was a pretty interesting and fun thing. But trying to put a movie out in 2020 is a tough time. But it was interesting on the distribution side of things because we ended up trying to find creative ways to do it. And one of the things that we ended up doing was a drive-in movie theater roadshow because people couldn't go out and do other things, but drive-in theaters were one of the few things that people could go and do. And most of those are independently booked, most of them by just whoever the person is that owns the drive-in. And you don't end up calling a booker, you end up calling the guy who owns it at his day job and trying to get him to play a movie. But it works out. It was a fun time.
That's amazing. And I gotta ask, did this film play at the drive-in theater across from where you grew up?
It did not, because unfortunately it's not there anymore.
Huh.
They tore it down. The Sumner County Drive-In is no more. There are still a few drive-ins in Tennessee, and we did play those, but that unfortunately the one in Gallatin is a liquor store and a car wash now.
If that's not a metaphor for the direction cinema's going, I don't know what is. Um, so you mentioned that Getaway was you had done some work on Getaway for post through your company. I assume that's Best Part Productions. Is that correct?
Yes.
In terms of transitioning out of law and actually forming Best Part, I'm curious what was the kind of criteria you used to decide like, oh no, this is going to be my main thing, if you will. This is going to be my main venture going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the real thing that started from that trajectory was that we did a short film called Daddy's Little Girl
Mhm.
in 2015, which is a horror short film, and that one was a strange situation. It's a script that was I wrote the script for that in a day, and we shot it 4 days later because we were trying to get in for an online contest for some kind of Wes Craven horror, whatever, some kind of short film thing that someone told us about. We were like, I don't want to do that. We're not gonna do that. And then we ended up, my brother and I, having a conversation about something else unrelated to that. And from that sparked an idea. I ended up writing a script, and then we ended up shooting this film in a basement that weekend. And then that film ended up going and winning Screamfest LA that year for best short film. And so from that, we ended up selling that film for distribution, and it did well. It did well enough that that company came back and bought the rest of our short films for distribution. as a filmmaking spotlight. And so it was like, okay, maybe this isn't a thing that we're just kind of playing yet. Like that was the moment where it was like, this seems like a thing that we could do more than what we're doing, because we had had this moment with this short film where it seemed like, okay, there's some kind of potential. And that also it's all in a narrative building, right? Because
Mhm.
now that's a narrative that can be used to raise money. That's a
Mm.
narrative that can be used to go and pitch bigger projects. Hey, people don't sell short films. I sold all my short films. Short films don't make money. They just go die on YouTube. Mine didn't. Here's where they were, right? Like now this became a thing of like, we don't have the experience. Why would you bet on a feature? Why would you bet on this bigger project? Now there was something that I could spin into something to go and try to push for something bigger. And so that's when I ended up making the decision to leave law in 2018. I guess actually I made the decision to leave law in 2017 and saved money for a year to leave law, with the idea that I was going to raise money for our first feature for Best Part Productions in 2019 and that we would shoot it in 2020, which was a really good plan in 2018 and a really bad plan in 2020. um, and then that film ended up being our first feature film as a company, which was The Other People, which is a horror film that we ended up shooting in 2021, and then have been doing festival runs on this year.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. So what
Thank
is
you.
yeah, absolute mazel tov. So let me ask, what is the other people about?
The Other People is about other people that live in your house. They wear your clothes, eat your food, sleep in your bed, use the rooms that you're not in when you're not in them.
Okay, that is good. That is creepy. That is an excellent. What was the process of making the other people like?
I mean, it was tough. I mean,
Mhm.
it's tough. Going from shorts to features is definitely a big jump. Um,
Mhm.
Everyone will kind of jokingly say you just do what you do on a short for more days, and like in some ways that's true, and then in other ways that's not true at all. Um, but with all of this, like I said, I never went to film school. My brother never went to film school. No one has ever taught us how to do any of this. Everything that we've done, we've just figured it out and done on our own. That's true from all of the fundraising aspects of it. That's true from all of the business side of it. And that's true from all the filmmaking side of it. The only reason that we know how to make a movie is because we went and made a movie. And then we made another movie. And we tried not to make the same mistakes we made on the movie before that. And that's really it. And so trying to figure out a strategy and trying to figure out a plan of how, like, okay, we need to raise this money in order to make this movie. I don't know how to do that. I don't come from a background where that's a thing. I don't have like a familial information to lean on. I don't have professional information to lean on. That was it. I mean, if there's one thing that I do have is that as a lawyer, it's not weird for me to go talk to people about stuff, and it's not weird for me to go talk to people about money, and it's not weird for me to go talk to business people. It's not overwhelming. And also, the paperwork side of things is not that big a deal. I've got that experience to be able to look at it and set up the structures that we need to go and do it. But so went out and just started trying to raise the money. But that was a long process and a tough process. And trying to now build an entire professional network different from the experience that I have in my other professional life. So, I spent 2 years in Nashville going to every single networking event, every business networking event that existed in the city. I went to every one of them for 2 years just to meet people and introduce myself as a filmmaker, because the only contacts that I had and the only stuff that I had was I'm a lawyer. So I had to basically rebuild an entire identity and network of people in order to try to start to have enough contacts to raise money.
Yeah, and also just for the listeners, I'm sure a lot of people, particularly people in film school, might think, oh, he's a lawyer. He must be connected to people with money. But the truth is that's not always the case. And on top of that, there are actual ethical and legal concerns for approaching previous clients about investment opportunities. Is that correct? Or
No, absolutely. And I mean, most of my previous clients too. I mean, I represented individuals. I didn't represent big companies or anything else. I sued big companies. In fact, that's what I did. In fact, I've had a situation where I've gone and talked to investors that own companies, and they'll talk about something throughout the case, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I sued you a bunch of times. Like I personally sued you multiple times. It's been a thing that we've talked about, like when we've had conversations about investments." So I didn't have a lot of like wealthy contacts, and
Mhm.
but the thing that it's so weird about raising money is
Mhm.
that it really is as simple as this. is that you have to go to people that have money and then ask them for it. And that it really is that. And the hard part is you're like, well, how do I find the people with money? And that is hard, but
Mm-hmm.
they also don't like live in a castle. They live in the world. And I tried all kinds of things. And I had success with like stuff that go into nice restaurants, go to nice restaurants and sit at the bar
Oh.
because people with money come and sit at the bar and just sit and talk with them. I mean, I don't know how many times I went and sat next to somebody at a bar at a nice restaurant and left with a check from that night, sitting there talking to people. Um, because it's a clearinghouse also, because you're already vetted in some way to them because you're in the place that they are.
Mm.
You're part of the community of people they can and should talk to because you're where they go. And I mean, I was jokingly, I was a regular at a place called Bourbon Steakhouse in Nashville, which is
Mm-hmm.
a fancy steakhouse on a 32nd floor of a hotel. I wasn't going there and spending a ton of money all the time. I was just going and sitting at the bar, having a couple of drinks and talking to whoever happened to be there on an expense account, you know?
Mm.
Um, but then you start building a network of people where you're around people that have money
Mm-hmm.
and you start to be not a weird presence in those circles. And then when you're calling and talking to people, it's not as strange of a thing. It's not a cold call, but it is really like long-term relationship development more than just like cold pitches. And it takes a long time. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey everyone, quick break here. If you listen to the Producers Lounge podcast, you know I'm obsessed with how stories get made and who gets to make them. That's why I wrote Threads of Imagination, a book about collaborative storytelling and the art of building worlds together. Published by DSTL Arts nonprofit, which supports young BIPOC artists, the book pulls from my own personal history and even from my family history and the tradition of itinerant tribes telling stories around the campfire. Threads of Imagination is a guide to collaborative storytelling and how ideas grow, evolve, and become something bigger when people create together. Whether you're a filmmaker, writer, artist, or just someone who loves the process behind good stories, this book gives you practical tools, creative prompts, and real-world insights to elevate your craft. That's right, Threads of Imagination is full of exercises, behind-the-scenes lessons, and inspiration to help you create with purpose and community. If you're looking to jumpstart your next project or sharpen your storytelling instincts, this is the place to go. You can find Threads of Imagination wherever books are sold online. All right, back to the Producers Lounge podcast. So you bring up something great, which is, the other people and talking about not repeating the same mistakes over again. With the other people, your first feature, what was the biggest filmmaking mistake that you made, and by proxy, the biggest lesson that you learned from it?
Um, it's there's a thing with indie filmmaking and there's a thing with low budget filmmaking a lot of times where you feel like you don't have options. And so if you make a mistake on a film or you make a decision on it, you feel trapped by that decision. You feel like you don't have the option to do something different. If
Mm.
you have someone that's not working out, you know, you feel like you can't make a change because you can't stop the train that's on the tracks because you don't have the resources to do something different. Or if you feel like oh, whatever, any number of those kinds of things, you feel like because you have limited resources that you feel like you have limited options, and you do have limited options, but you don't have no options. And I would say probably the biggest lesson that I learned on that was that you do have options. You don't have to just let it ride just because you're like, well, I'm sunk into this. This is just what we have to do. Like that's not true, and that's not a thing that you have to do. Um, you can make a different decision. You can go a different way. You can structure your things. You can delay a day if you have to delay a day and make a change. Whatever. Those are things that you can do. It's not that you have nothing. It's not like you have no power, but it can feel that way in a moment because you're like, how are we going to afford this? How are we going to make this happen? Um, and sometimes you have to make some really hard decisions with that. Um, but the biggest thing that I can say is that if you make the film the focus, if you realize that you have to pay honor to the film. I look at it as a two-step process. Like the first thing that you owe is you owe a debt to the film, and then you owe a debt to the people that made the film. And one of the
Mm.
things that you owe in that debt to the people that made the film is that you owe them a good film, because they all came and sacrificed. They all came and worked at a, probably, below rate or whatever it is. Everyone gave of this, and they put their trust in you as filmmakers to deliver something to them. So now you owe that to them, and then you also owe it to the story also. And so if you keep those three things as the focus and don't let the other stuff get in the way, then in the end you'll end up where you need to end up. But I feel like a lot of times people can kind of miss the mark sometimes with that. They let all of the problems get in the way or get in the dressing or, whatever, the money, whatever, instead of realizing like, no, what the only thing that's going to matter is this.
Mm.
Um, and we had some tough situations on the film. We had some tough things that we had to sort through. And, you're working long. There's not a lot of people. There's not a lot of resources, and you make it work. Um, and then, you buy yourself problems later that you have to then try to fix because you bought yourself problems later.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. I remember there was one feature that I produced called Virus X. And we were very fortunate that it got picked up by Lionsgate for acquisition, but it was specifically a low budget horror feature, micro budget. We shot it in literally a storage facility. But one of the good things I learned from David Serling, who was the main producer on that, was because it was so low budget, structuring it to shoot on Mondays and Tuesdays and then Thursdays and Fridays. So you had that extra day in the middle to kind of breathe and reevaluate. What if we moved this set up? What if we did this location instead? And things like that. Um, and so, yeah, I would say I would agree with you. The false binary is often very frustrating and stressful. Um, and I'm curious, regarding the other people, what was the best part of making that movie for you?
I mean, the best part, we got to work with some really just absolutely incredible people. Our lead, Lyndie Greenwood, was unbelievable, and Valentina Lucido, who plays the little girl Abby Marsh in the film. You never know when you're going to work with a kid, like how it's going to go or what's going to be. And this is a movie that demands a lot of that performer. And she was so professional and so good. And we were sweating so many things that we didn't have to worry about and didn't have to sweat. So we had Ashley Crowe in the movie, who plays a character named Wendy.
Mhm.
Ashley Crowe, we had for 2 days. And we're shooting in an RV, which is tiny. So trying to set everything up to shoot in there is very difficult. But we're
Mhm.
shooting these scenes in an RV, and we only have her for 2 days. And one of the things we need her to do is 6 pages of dialogue with the child.
Oof.
And there's no time. There's no other option. We just have to get it. And she just nailed it. I mean, just so good. And it was great to see those things and have those performances and watch those things come to life. And same thing with our crew. We had so many talented people that were working on it. Our DP, Jeremy Mackey, producer Tony Dancy, our sound team and wardrobe team were really just incredible. Like there were just so many awesome people that were like really bought into the story and really like sacrificed and gave so much. And we demanded a lot, asked for a lot on the film, and they delivered like above and beyond anything that I could have ever imagined. And so that was super fun. And it's also super fun to try to solve the problems because we would have things that would go wrong. Like there was scenes where, like, there was a scene where we needed it's a horror movie, so I don't think it's a spoiler to say that we needed a corpse. We needed a corpse. We needed a body. And it was the day before we were going to shoot the scene, and we didn't have a body. Just didn't have one. And trying to figure out what it is that we're going to do. And so, me working on it, I'll go around and I'm like, do we have this plan? Do we have this figured out? Do we have a body for tomorrow? Everyone's just kind of like, no. And it was Halloween. And so I literally just called every haunted house in town and asked if I could come before they opened and look at their corpses to see if there was one that I thought I could use for the movie. And there ended up not being, but it was fun. And then we ended up solving the problem a different way. My wife ended up actually making a body out of tights and bags of rice And then we ended up building limbs for it out of pieces of steel that we cut off the grip truck. Like, and so figuring that out and then figuring out if it's going to work and then going with it. And it was an absolute blast. Or, we ran into a situation where we had a gag that we had had in the script forever. And then we showed up on the day to shoot it and the gag wasn't going to work. Just wasn't happening, wasn't going to work. We were losing time. And my brother, who directed the film and co-wrote it with me and co-produced it, ran over to me at one point on set and just threw the script at me and said, "You have 10 minutes to rewrite this." He said, "The gag doesn't work. You have 10 minutes to rewrite this scene." Because we couldn't just cut it, because a lot of the dialogue in the first part of the scene were also about the gag. So we had to completely redo the script or else the scene doesn't work. And so I had to just go and grab a laptop and get away from everybody in a corner and rewrite it and then run pages down and have everybody learn it on the fly and go. And it works great. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It works great. So stuff like that, was loads of fun.
That sounds fantastic. Um, I'll also say that sometimes, from my own experience, sometimes having the writer on set can be a blessing and a curse. I actually worked on another project of mine called well, not a project of mine. I line produced a feature called A Haunting in Silver Falls 2. We're up in Oregon, and we made the decision to have the writer, Jesse, come up and be on set with us while we were shooting. And unfortunately, then the default solution for everything became write your way out of the problem. That also that yeah, so overkill is not great. But yeah.
No, but I mean, I do like the constant onslaught of problems. You have your plan, and you really, as a producer, most of your work is in the pre-production and the planning, and then the rest of it's putting out fires for most of the time during production. But I like that part of it. And if there's something that I really know about myself from my law background, is that when I got into film, I saw that film people panicked over things that I couldn't figure out why they were panicking, because I didn't think that they were that big of a deal of a problem. I have a stoic nature. I have a calmness about it that, like, these things don't seem like big problems to me. These seem like things that are very solvable, because it's not like, hey, somebody's husband died or whatever. Like, these are all seem fine. We can figure out solutions to these things. But it will be stuff sometimes, like, because things took a different direction. We had on very short notice going into our third week of shooting. It's like all of a sudden we needed a garbage truck and we needed garbage cans and we needed a location in which to shoot a sequence where we used these things. Okay, figure it out. Get on the phone with the city. Figure out how to get a garbage truck. Figure out how to get that garbage truck over here and what it is that it's going to do. And it ends up working great, and it ends up being great. And it's the same kind of thing of, like, just because you're a low budget movie doesn't mean you can't get access to things. You just got to call, figure it out, figure out what they need, what's important to them, and then make it happen. And all of a sudden we've got a truck with a garbage truck and 2 drivers and 10 garbage cans show up on the street we need them on, and you do what you need to do.
Yeah, you never know what you can get until you ask.
For sure.
So when The Other People was finished, what was the experience of, like, did you start the project having distribution in pocket already, or did you seek that afterwards? No, you're shaking your head no.
No, we still have not signed distribution for that film. We are still in the process of doing that. We had finished it, went through the post process, and then started the festival run, and then also started the communications with the distribution contacts that we had, and have just been going through that process through this year. I do think that we are close to signing something, but that has been, something that we've taken our time with a great deal, just to try to make sure that we find the right partner and somebody that's going to get excited about the movie in the right way.
Excellent. And then you recently completed production on Heartbreak. Can I ask how that project came about? Starring our mutual friend, Beverly D'Angelo.
Beverly D'Angelo, who was an absolute dream to work with. It is great to have professional people do professional things. She's great. The Heartbreak was a weird situation as far as it coming to me. It came to me thanks to the Tennessee Titans football team, which is strange, but you never know where the paths of networking are going to go, right? This is a relationship business. It's not a transactional business. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy named Lance Smith who had been the sideline hype man for the Tennessee Titans for a long time. And I met him when they were shooting a promotional video for the in-stadium like video board. I went as a season ticket holder to be an extra in that video, and I met Lance as a result of that, and ended up having a conversation where he was saying that he wanted to get into filmmaking, that he wanted to do indie filmmaking, he wanted to direct, and he ended up having a long conversation with my wife about that. And she goes, "Oh, my husband's a filmmaker. You guys should talk." And she gave him my number. He messaged me, and we went and had drinks a couple of times, talked about movies. And he started shooting his directorial debut right around the same time that we were shooting the other people. And so we just, kind of messaged through that process. We're supportive through that process. And then he is the writer director for The Heartbreak. And that movie was coming up for him. He was doing that, and he lives down in Florida. And he called and said, "Hey, I want to shoot this in Tennessee. I need a producer. Can you put it together?" And so I came on board. And that was the first time that Lance and I've ever worked together. But it was just from years of knowing each other, because we met at basically on the sidelines of the Tennessee Titans.
That's fantastic. So let me ask then, what is Best Part Productions up to right now? What's in the future for it?
Right now, still festivals for the other people. I actually am leaving next week to go back to Europe for the film. Heading to Bruges for the Razor Reel Festival, which is a horror festival in Belgium. And then we've got a few more festivals coming up after that. And then it's trying to put together the money for the next one. That's basically it. We've got several scripts. We've always got the general way that I try to approach it is that if you've got time, I've got more pitches than you've got time to hear. You'll run out of time before I run out of stuff to talk about. But so we have several other feature scripts, and we've got some that we would want to make a priority of what the next thing is. And then I'm starting those conversations now as we're getting the distribution stuff going for the other people, to then say, okay, let's get the next one up on its legs and go from there. But that's the goal.
Fantastic. And then you might have already answered this, but I know you mentioned you said you love creative problem solving. What aspect of filmmaking are you most excited to get back to?
I mean, I love writing. I really do love the writing, and I think that that's a lot of fun. And it has a lot to do with the fact that I write with my brother, and it's a fun process because it's one of the few times when the two of us get to get in a room and we don't have to talk about all of the other stuff in life. Like, we can be like truly passionate about film and about story and about things that matter a lot to us in that regard, without having to worry about the logistics and the money and the contracts and the whatever. You get to just be in that moment. And I feel like writing is one of the only parts of the process where that gets to happen, where you only have to be focused on this. You're not worried about, hey, are we coming up on lunch, or are we about to go into overtime, or do we have to think about second meal, or you don't have, none of that stuff is there. And none of that stuff is bad, but that's the only time when you get to be, this is truly like, we are pure story in this time. And I get really excited about that, and it's fun. I love the producing side of it too. I like being on set. I like being able to solve those problems. I like it better when there aren't problems and everybody's just humming along, and that's great. But it doesn't go that way all the time. And I love seeing it made, but I love that initial part. I love that writing, because you're making a decision like, hey, I'm going to do this, and I think now that if you get it right, you're like, I think this is worth years of my life. And that's an exciting time. So that's a part that I definitely get really excited about.
Awesome. And yeah, people don't tell you, and as someone who went to film school, nobody tells you, like, if you move forward on a project, you're going to be in it for years of your life.
And even other film, like, this is no selection, but it's like I ran into one of the crew people from The Heartbreak the other night, and he's like, "What are you up to?" And I'm like, working on The Heartbreak. I'm still in the post process and the wrap process for that, right? But like, if you're, for crew people, it doesn't normally go that way. They go from one project to the next project to the next project, which is great. Like, if they're working and things are going great, then that's the way that it goes. And so they're always on to the next thing pretty quickly. From a producer standpoint, It doesn't go very quickly.
No. And if you're lucky, you have to like overlap projects as well. So,
Yeah, I didn't think that the heartbreak was going to happen. I thought that I was going to have to turn it down because I was doing so many film festivals for the
mm,
other people. I was like, I don't know that I have time to make this happen. But it was such a good opportunity, and I really wanted the opportunity to work with Lance and Chuck and the rest of the team. And then as the cast came together, I really wanted the opportunity to work with them as well, with Beverly and Joey Lawrence and Mick Foley and Courtney D'Angelo and
mhm,
everyone that was on the team, Hunter Sansone.
mhm.
Um, it was a beautiful opportunity, and so I really didn't want to miss it. But it really kind of just perfectly fell in the window this summer when I was going to be here for 6 weeks. And other than that, like I like came back from Brazil from a film festival, shot the film, and then a week after we wrapped, I got on a plane and was in London for another festival. I mean, it was really like just in a perfect window when I could do it, which they didn't do for me, but it just kind of worked. It just kind of worked out, which was exciting.
And let me ask, because you also on your LinkedIn, you're listed as I want to get this right, Nashville Music Film and Entertainment Commission. What do you love about Nashville, and why do you think more filmmakers should shoot there?
I mean, for me, it's home, and it's I want to do things here because I want to do things here, and I tell stories that are Southern stories, even if they're not overtly Southern stories. I think for people that didn't grow up in the South, they may watch what I make and not think that they're particularly Southern. There's not a lot of state fairs or corn dogs or any other things that people might think about when they associate with the South. But but to me, they are very much rooted in that, and so having them be here is something that's always been really nice. The benefits for making a film in Tennessee or making a film in Nashville specifically is that we have top notch world class crew here, and they are true like dedicated film warriors at every department at every level, and that's a thing that I don't think that people understand or realize that is here, but it is here, and it is funny because my DP, Jeremy Mackey, who I worked with on the other people. He shot the other people. I brought him back for the Heartbreak. He's my guy. Love that guy. He's awesome. He was shocked about it when he came here. Like, he came here to shoot. He's the only guy I flew in from LA from the crew standpoint. Everybody else was local.
Mhm.
And he's like, these guys are real pro. It's like, so that's a really nice feature of shooting here. Additionally, location wise, there's a lot of really beautiful stuff in Nashville. And there's not a lot of movies that have happened here. So there's not a lot of stuff that's been burned in a way. Like, you haven't seen that in 30 other movies. That those locations are fresh and new. And it's also the populace here isn't jaded or bitter about it. They're not like, yeah, you can come and shoot here for, a $25,000 location fee or whatever. Like, you can get access to places because it's still all relatively new. They've either had nothing shoot there or only one or two things shoot there, and so they are genuinely excited about the possibility of production happening as opposed to it being an imposition or disruption to what their normal things are going. So I think that those things are really nice. I mean, from a structure standpoint, from a tax incentive standpoint, do I wish that those things were different? Do I wish that those things were better? Yes. You talked about the commission. So I am a commissioner for what has now been rebranded the Nashville Entertainment Commission to try to attract projects to Nashville. Um, and those are some of the things that we're trying to make easier. We want permitting to be easier. We want there to be better tax incentive things here. Those are things that we're trying to push for to get more things here. And there is more infrastructure that's also growing. But another great benefit, as well as music, is
Mhm.
that I think the music reputation of Nashville is well known and it is well earned. You can go anywhere you want and get access to the best musicians that you'd find anywhere. And you need a studio. You don't have to go and find. You don't have to go to where Sony records. You can go to any number of studios all over the city. There are people everywhere that have them. People that are very knowledgeable and talented about that stuff that also make it great. We've never had a film that wasn't based entirely on original music from Nashville artists. All of our composers have been Nashville artists, and then all of our sync placements for Best Part Productions have been Nashville artists, because you don't have to do it different. There's so much here that you have access to do that in a way that's really fun.
Fantastic. If you could go back to the cattle farm in Galveston and give yourself a piece of advice before you set out on this journey, what would it be?
I mean, the first thing would be that it's possible that you could do it. I think you said like I think we're probably about comparable age. Coming up in the '80s, there weren't the idea that these things could happen. Like there weren't DVDs with a bunch of behind the scenes features. There weren't podcasts of people talking about filmmaking. Like you just went to the movies and saw them. You never saw the process of it, and so it seemed impossible. Like the only time I ever even envisioned that it was possible was seeing a Star Wars making of TV special in the '80s, which was the first time I ever even saw that people made movies, and it wasn't that they just like magically appeared in some way. And so the first thing would be that it's possible as a career choice, because I feel like that's a big thing, particularly in small towns where like the breadth and the amount of jobs available don't seem available. Like you go to a guidance counselor, it's like you can be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, or you can go work in an office, or you can go work at a factory, and like those are the jobs. And it's like the idea that this is even a job that you can have was not a thing that would have ever occurred to me when I was a child or a teenager. Like I didn't think that this was a profession. Even being in a city that has an entertainment foundation, like I knew musicians, I knew that was a job. But the idea that you could make movies and that could be a thing you could do seemed insane, seemed not real.
Nice. And then, who are some of your favorite authors and philosophers?
Ooh, authors and philosophers. Um, Philosophers. Uh, so authors, I'm gonna talk about a few people that I'm gonna say some comic book writers, because I think that it's a thing that more filmmakers should pay attention to. Honestly,
Nice.
uh, so I mean, there's the big people like Alan Moore, Frank Miller, and greats like that. But there's people writing right now, like um, uh, Scott Snyder and Chip Zdarsky and Matt Fraction, and he doesn't write anymore because he died, but Darwin Cook. Like I read a Darwin Cook story last week that absolutely floored me that I can't stop thinking about. And I do think that there's a lot to comic books and the efficiency that they have to write with because of the limited amount of space that they have, and the visual style of the storytelling, that I think that there's a lot of lessons to be found there for filmmaking. And when I see people looking for like, oh, how should I learn more about screenwriting? How should I learn more about this? I'm like, you probably read these comic books more than buying a book about how to write a screenplay. Whatever, I'll read a lot. I do think that it's important to read a lot. If you want to write, I think it's important to read a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And that is Season 3, Episode 18 of the Producers Lounge podcast. Thank you to my guest, Trey McClarnon, for joining us. You can find out more about him by checking out the show notes and subscribing to our YouTube channel at Greater Grander. Our intro and outro music today was Acoustic Blues by Audionautix. Our episode still image is by Ricardo Tomasz on Greater and Grander. We'd love to hear from you, and you can check out this week's accompanying article on greaterandgrander.com entitled 6 Necessary Pitch Materials Every Media Property Needs, and 5 More That Are Nice to Have to Stand Out in Film and Entertainment. Link in the show notes. You can stay up to date by following us on YouTube and social media at the handle Greater Grander, all one word. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube or wherever fine podcasts are found. And also, if you like what we do, share this podcast with a friend who you think will enjoy it. Join us next week for more cocktails and questions, and until then, keep producing dreams.